say that you condemn white supremacy?
I'm not going to recite some catechism for you. I'm against vicious racial discrimination in this country. So I'm not pledging allegiance to your new religion of modern wokeism, which actually fits the test. I'm not going to bend the knee to your religion. I'm sorry. I'm not asking you to bend the knee to mine, and I'm not going to bend the knee to yours. But do I condemn vicious racial discrimination? Yes, I do. Am I going to play your silly game of gotcha? No, I'm not. And frankly, this is why people have lost trust. And I know you're going to go print the headline tomorrow. I already know this. We already know how your game works. Vivek Ramaswamy refuses to condemn white supremacy because you asked a stupid question. The reality is, I condemn vicious racial discrimination in this country, but the kind of vicious and systematic racial discrimination we see today is discrimination on the basis of race in a very different direction. You want to know what the best way is to end discrimination on the basis of race? Stop discriminating on the basis of race. Do that, and we're going to move this country forward. And I don't care whether you're black or white or brown or anything in between. That's how we're going to unite this country.
All right, folks. Well, we have another Vivek video for you here today, and this is a good one and a very important one because this is a tactic that they try to use against conservatives literally all the time to set us up, to waste our time, to get that one soundbite of, wow, we made him look stupid. Let's air it on CNN a million different times. And instead of taking that bait, instead of playing their stupid game by their stupid rules, Vivek instead basically turns the question on its head and calls it out for exactly what it is, which is a very dumb question. So long story short, he was at a campaign stop in Iowa, and this Washington Post reporter asked him of course, right, very relevant and pertinent and pressing question. You know, a lot of people are on the fence about Vivek, but the one question in January 2024, when his campaign has been going on for almost a year, is of course the question of, do you condemn white supremacy? Yes. That is indeed the very serious question that the very serious outlet Washington Post asked him. And, you know, I think the reason they usually do this is to try to get conservatives to be on defense and to get very defensive. And that's usually what a lot of conservatives, I think, wrongfully do when they're asked this question, because the very question of, do you condemn white supremacy, inherently kind of comes with a backhanded accusation of, hey, you know, clearly you might believe in that. So, you know, we're kind of giving that idea credibility by asking you that. And so most conservatives will respond by saying, no, what? Of course I don't. No, I'm not a white supremacist, right? And instead of playing that game, Vivek instead says, long story short, what a stupid question that is, and shame on you for even asking something that ridiculous. I mean, look at the guy. He's brown, and he's been running a campaign for almost a year now, and that's what you choose to ask. Well, let's play the video. Here's his response to the very stupid question about white supremacy.
Do you condemn white supremacy and white nationalism?
I mean, what this guy, who are you with? Which Washington Post. All right. So potato. OK. Of course, I condemn any form of vicious racial discrimination in this country. But I think that the presumption of your question is fundamentally based on a falsehood that really is the main form of racial discrimination we see in this country today. Institutionalized racism is institutionalized racial discrimination that we see that doesn't come from somehow discriminating against people on the basis of some tenet of white supremacy. It's based on affirmative action. It's based on actually discriminating against people on the color of their skin in a way that's actually institutionalized today. Was there a point in our history, at points in our prior national history, where there have been vicious forms of anti-black or anti-brown discrimination throughout this country after the Civil War and otherwise? Yes. But you're looking in the rearview mirror and using that to pose a question today that is so far removed from what the reality is in America today. This myth of white supremacy, the closest you can find is Jussie Smollett, where you all were actually, speaking of trust in the media, jumping up and down over some false narrative. The best way you're able to find your best instance of white supremacy was a guy who was actually paying his other fellow people to be actually staging something that didn't happen.
And that's let me pause right there. That's such an important point by Vivek. And it's something a lot of Republican candidates are kind of scared to say because they think it's too far or too radical, too extreme. No, it's simply just the truth, which is there is a form of institutionalized racism in America today. You know what it looks like? It looks like affirmative action. It looks like putting down white candidates and in some cases Asian candidates who are qualified for jobs or positions or slots in schools for less qualified black and brown candidates. It looks like school systems issuing curriculum that teaches that white people are evil and teaches white kids to hate themselves and hate their ancestors and hate where they came from and hate the very forefathers who built the United States of America in many ways. That is institutionalized racism. That is, in most cases, anti-white racism. But of course, you're not supposed to say that, right? Of course, you're just supposed to pretend like that's not real. The most you can say as a Republican is, well, I mean, everything is colorblind now in America. And it's like maybe 10 years ago, we were kind of moving towards that point. But the truth of the matter is, no, there is a growing and very real sense of institutionalized racism in this country, specifically towards white people. In some cases, Asian people get a little bit of a boomerang, especially in colleges. But I mean, mainly it is towards white people, right? But what, we're not allowed to say that? It's simply true. So props to Vivek for calling that out.
And so stop picking on this farce of some figment that exists at some infinitesimally small fringe of the American public today to open our eyes to the actual real threats that we face. And I think that it's frankly questions and framings like that that has caused the American public to lose all trust in the mainstream media, I'm sorry to say, for good reason.
Yeah, and by the way, that's systemic racism. Okay, if your system, be it a college, a corporation, whatever it is, has rules in place that enforce things like diversity quotas or affirmative action or whatever, that is systemic racism. That is institutionalized racism. And that's the only form of it that there is in America today. But of course, oh no, well that's a little bit controversial. Whoa, you're saying there's racism against white people. Oh yeah, there is. There is.
You didn't say that you condemn white supremacy, though.
I'm not going to recite some catechism for you. I'm against vicious racial discrimination in this country. So I'm not pledging allegiance to your new religion of modern wokeism, which absolutely fits the test. I'm not going to bend the knee to your religion. I'm sorry. I'm not asking you to bend the knee to mine, and I'm not going to bend the knee to yours. But do I condemn vicious racial discrimination? Yes, I do. Am I going to play your silly game of gotcha? No, I'm not. And frankly, this is why people have lost trust. And I know you're going to go print the headline tomorrow. I already know this. We already know how your game works. Vivek Ramaswamy refuses to condemn white supremacy because you asked a stupid question. The reality is, I condemn vicious racial discrimination in this country, but the kind of vicious and systematic racial discrimination we see today is discrimination on the basis of race in a very different direction. You want to know what the best way is to end discrimination on the basis of race? Stop discriminating on the basis of race. Do that, and we're going to move this country forward. And I don't care whether you're black or white or brown or anything in between. That's how we're going to unite this country. You people have been responsible for dividing this country to a breaking point, creating a projection of national division. I meet people from the south side of Chicago to meetings like this one of every shade of melanin, multiple, from man to woman, doesn't make a difference, who are hungry for reviving unity in this country. And you, with your catechism that you try to get to politicians to whatever fake headline you're going to print on the basis of this conversation tomorrow, that's what's dividing this country to a breaking point. Shame on you. Look people in the eye and tell them what you've actually failed to tell them for the last 5 years. Own the accountability for your own failures as the media. That's how we rebuild trust in this country. And until then, I don't have a lot of patience to play the games.
What do you expect from at an earlier event, you talked about members of...
Boom. That's a dumb question. Is absolutely the right way to respond to a dumb question. Okay? And to seriously sit there and ask an Indian candidate for president, do you condemn white supremacy? And then when he says, yeah, I condemn all forms of racial bigotry, to double down and say, you didn't condemn white supremacy? Is Vivek Ramaswamy some type of white supremacist? Yeah, okay. But folks, like I said in the beginning, the reason they ask conservatives this question so often, whether it's pundits or usually political candidates, is fundamentally to waste your time. I mean, that's honestly probably the first aspect of this. Is you took about 3 minutes of his time, you diverted from what could have been a serious question about any issue that actually matters or is relevant to Ramaswamy or his campaign, And that's one of the key reasons that they do it, is to distract from the real conversations that actually matter in this country. And they were masterful at this, under the Trump presidency. Instead of talking about his presidency and the issues that were really going on in America, you create this ghost of white supremacy. It's the biggest issue facing America. And what do? You divert, you distract, you waste time, you stop actual discussion about things that are important. That's number one. But number two, like I also said in the beginning, another big reason they ask this question is to force any conservative to have to get defensive, to play defense, to say, oh, no, yeah, no, I don't. I do condemn white supremacy. And really the only way out of this game that they try to do, because you really can't win the game, okay? Because even if you do condemn white supremacy, they're still going to call you white supremacist, and you still, in a sense, look defensive or weak or put in a bad position by the fact that they even asked you about it. So really, the only way to respond to it is to say exactly what Vivek said. That's a stupid question. I'm not playing into your dumb games or your kind of fake, screwed up moral worldview or whatever it is. I'm just going to reject it. I'm going to tell you you're dumb, and it's not even a question worth asking. And move on. Absolutely. And I wish a lot more conservatives, a lot more Republicans actually did that, because, instead they'll spend about 5 minutes trying to prove why I'm not a white supremacist. I'm not a racist. I mean, look at what I did about this or that. Again, do you think they're asking you that question in good faith? Of course not. Of course not. Okay, and no well-meaning person would ask any mainstream politician in America about that question. But of course, they're not well-meaning. Okay, they're not. And every time you play into that and try to do, look at this law I passed for black people or this or that. That's not the point. That's not, you're helping them by doing that, because you are sort of playing into their game. And then, of course, naturally, what will happen is they're still going to call you white supremacist anyway. Do you think that if Vivek did the generic Republican defense line of how much he's not a white supremacist, you think that would stop them from still calling him a white supremacist the next day? Of course not. Of course not. It didn't matter how many times Donald Trump clearly was not a white supremacist. They were still going to call him that. And so I say to all of this, of course, none of us are white supremacists. But at the same time, if we continue to play this game where we constantly have to prove, hey, look, we're not racist, guys. All you do is, A, look kind of silly yourself. Okay, you look unserious yourself. And B, you enable them to continue playing this game. Okay? So props to Vivek. Good on him. We need more of this. And let me know your thoughts on that in the comment section down below. But until next time, folks, be sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Let me know your thoughts. Also, let me know your thoughts on the Epstein client list. We'll probably be talking about that tomorrow, but that just released right when I was recording this. So if you have any early thoughts, let me know. But until next time, Alpha Moves Only. God bless. Have a very good day. Peace.